So since I took a look at the first series of Jojo last year, might as well take a look at the second series this year. But since the series is a lot longer, I can't really recap the plot entirely like I did the last time, so let's do a shorter look at it this time. Stardust Crusaders the manga was released in 1989 and the anime adaptation in 2014. The story this time involves Joseph's grandson, Jotaro Kujo, who seems to have developed a strange power of a giant purple man who stands beside him and fights for him. His grandfather tells him that a lot of people have recently developed these powers, called stands, including himself, and that this is only the beginning. It turns out that the reason the Joestars have developed this power is that it's revealed that, despite Arena seemingly using Dio's casket to escape the exploding ship in the first part, Dio was in fact successful in stealing Jonathan's body and was discovered off the coast of Egypt a few years ago, and now he's developed a stand power, and since stand powers travelled down the bloodline mystically, and since he's using Jonathan's body, all the other Joestars have developed them as well. But unfortunately, since Jotaro's mother, Holly, isn't a strong fighter like her father and son, her stand's power turns in on itself and is slowly killing her. So Joseph decides that the only way to save her is to kill Dio and prevent his curse from killing her. This is the first JoJo series to introduce the power style that would become synonymous with the franchise. Stands, physical manifestations of a person's fighting spirit and soul that are capable of incredible power. Me personally, I much preferred the Ripple, since while the power wasn't that unique, it did feel like they were being very creative in how they utilised it, and just seemed like it was more interesting that while its capabilities were few, the possibilities were endless. Here, it just feels like a lazy way to make it seem like there are new powers every episode. However, this does give us more possibilities, and it is a cool idea. Plus, Araki's writing style of taking limited ideas and finding the most he can get out of them still rings true here, since while some of the powers the characters have do seem very basic, what they do with them is very creative and intelligent. There's Jotaro's stand, Star Platinum, who is super strong and fast, Mohammed Avdol's stand, Magician's Red, who can command fire, Joseph's Hermit Purple, which produces vines that allow him to use clairvoyant abilities, and so on. This also continues the theme from the previous series of the characters starting off as enemies but are then made allies, as the Stardust Crusaders consist of the men I mentioned, but also Jotaro's schoolmate, Noriaki Kakuin, whose stand Hierophant Green can possess people, shoot out projectiles and unravel itself, French tourist Jean-Pierre Polnareff, whose stand Silver Chariot wields a sword and is hella fast, and street dog Iggy, whose stand The Fool, guess they ran out of colours to use there, can make constructs out of sand. So we've got a group of interesting and powerful characters, a genuine threat that calls back to the show's origins, and a new gimmick to keep the story fresh. So why don't I like this series as much as the previous ones? Well, for one, this started a new format where instead of the show feeling more fully serialised like the last two, and while there is an ongoing plot thread, this time the show devolves more into Villain of the Week style stories like Power Rangers or Pokemon, which works well for those shows, but I really did like how the last two series felt more like you were reading a novel. Now it feels more like individual issues of a comic. Which, to be fair, that's what it was originally, but it is really frustrating. It doesn't help that this series is much longer than the others. You know how Phantom Blood and Battle Tendency together were 26 episodes, keeping the story nice and tightly compacted and focused, even though they were two separate stories? Well, Stardust Crusaders has 48 episodes. 48! For one story! And this time, Araki is not very efficient with the time he has because, my god, the amount of fluff in this show is insane. Remember how I said I loved the elaborate explanations of the characters' plans and ideas from the last series? Well, I'm starting to regret that now because that's more than half of what the episodes are. This whole show is like 85% exposition, and if you took out the explaining scenes of this show, the whole thing would seriously probably only be about 25 minutes long. It's ridiculous. It really does chug down the pacing. The whole series is just a slog to get through, and after a while it just feels like a chore. Also, a big problem with the series is the main character. I honestly feel that Jotaro is the worst JoJo in the series.
Jotaro!
Shut up! Get out of my face, you bitch!
Okay.
Come out. It's time to go home.
Get lost. I didn't ask you to come here. You really think you can help me?
I know I'm probably going to get ripped to shreds for that remark, but I'm sorry, he's a horrible character. Imagine if you took all the bad boy elements of Joseph and then took out all the things that made him funny and endearing and just turned him into a boring, bland, and thoroughly unlikable edgelord. He is despicable. despicable and just not entertaining to watch, and despite his awesome design, he is just so unlikable compared to his granddad and great-great-granddad. What's sad is that I think Jotaro could have been brilliant if they toned down his edgelord side, that's a must, but if they also had it where he's so sick of the bad guys going on massive soliloquies and monologues in fights that he just punches their lights out midway through, that would have been awesome. And don't get me wrong, normally I like the grand speeches bad guys give in anime, but Stardust Crusaders is really where they started getting out of hand, especially with Dio near the end. But no, he's just a typical late 80s, 90s grim tool, and I can't stand him. Also have to ask, what's with the shoulder pads? Not just on Jotaro, but every character seems to have them. I mean, I know it was the 80s, but still, it looks weird. So, okay, you probably think I hate this series because of these elements, and well, yes, these elements do really detract from my enjoyment. Honestly, I do still really enjoy the series for its good parts. The other characters, besides Jotaro, are really good. Joseph is still the lovable, competent, genius goofball from the last series, but now has more of a grumpy old man feel about him, which really works.
Why is every single room in this house so tiny and cramped? This is exactly why I hate Japan. Well, it makes no difference. It's all on me, boys. Besides, it doesn't matter what you order. It's all delicious.
And his new voice actor, Richard Epcar, aka Raiden from Mortal Kombat, does an excellent job. I do miss his British accent though, but it is still a great characterization. Kakyoin is more what I hope Jotaro would be, a polite and sensitive schoolboy who is super intelligent and formal, and voiced by Ryu from Street Fighter himself, Kyle Hebert.
Don't be so jumpy. This is just to let them know we want more tea. If you do this in Hong Kong, they'll usually bring you more within a few seconds. Lick, 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 lick.
Avdol is one of the more blander characters, but he is good at being the primary guide character, and his voice is really cool.
Mafias, militaries, politicians, lowlifes the world over hire him. I've seen him before, and he looks as fierce as his reputation.
Polnareff as an up-his-own-arse pretty boy and ladies man is really funny, and feels a lot like a melding of Johnny Bravo and Brock from Pokemon.
Ladies, I would love to take your photograph. Come along. There. You have very nice legs. I'll be sure to get them in the shot. Wee, perfection.
And even Iggy gets a lot of personality, and even has some episodes where he speaks, and he's a lot of fun too.
Might want to keep still. Looks like you're losing a lot of blood there. But before this drags out any further, you should probably know I don't give a rat's ass about you or your master Dio. What the hell was that? Who does this guy think he is, Bruce Lee?
Hey, Jotaro, I'm saying your character is less interesting than a dog that farts in people's faces. Maybe take that as a hint. The bad guys they face, while often only appearing for one episode, are also a lot of fun, and they all have very unique abilities that, as expected from Jojo, are used to their fullest ability. And what's cool is that a lot of their powers are inspired by classic horror monsters like the Blob, Chucky from Child's Play, Freddy Krueger, and even the ape from Link. My favourites of them are probably Whole Horse, the cowboy dude with a magic gun, whose name was changed from its original inspiration to make sure that they didn't get sued.
This is no life for a lady, and you have royal blood. We can't have a fairy tale marriage.
But when you've got girls like her all over the world at your beck and call, well, you've always got an ally, a partner. They'd do anything for me, even throw away their own lives.
Enya the Hag, whose English dub is voiced by Rita Repulsa herself, Barbara Goodson.
Get them! The bastards! I will make sure they pay a terrifying price for the Empress card!
And the Oingo Boingo brothers. Yes, Araki really made characters called Oingo and Boingo respectfully. How can you not love him for that? I also really like the plot format for this series. As I mentioned last time, Jojo tends to have a different format for each series, and this time it's a globe-trotting road trip, which is a lot of fun, and they really utilise the various locations they visit. And while a lot of the explanations of what goes on in the series are really long-winded and tedious, they can still be very clever and imaginative. And a lot of the times in Jojo, it doesn't matter if the explanation is good, you're just happy that there even is an explanation. And of course, Dio is awesome as always. He's not as despicable as he was the last time we saw him, but he is as charismatic and glorious as he always was, and during the final episodes, we get to see him totally unhinged, which is a real treat.
I've been an immortal being for an entire century. But never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined I'd feel something this exhilarating. I'm going to roll all over you!
Plus his power of, Oh, and major spoilers here, being able to stop time is really cool and they really utilise it well, even if the amount of time they abuse cinematically for when he's frozen time is really stupid. Seriously, he's supposed to only freeze time for 5 seconds, but there are times when you're watching he seems like he's frozen time for 10 minutes. This also started the trope of making all the final boss characters of Jojo up until Steel Ball Run having time-based abilities. Some that would be cool, others that were really stupid. And the theme song for the first half of the series is really cool. It's more rock orientated than the last two, but it really works, and it does have a more of emotionally heavy feel this time around. Sadly, the second theme song, since this series was chopped in half, isn't really that good. The orchestration is kinda cool, but the singers aren't very good, and it feels like they're not singing with the beat of the actual tune. Though, the chorus at the end is alright. Sadly, despite all these good elements, the bad ones did really turn me off quite a bit. And while I do revisit this series every once in a while, I'm normally not able to binge it all the way through because it just becomes too much to handle. And due to these surmounting elements that turn me off, my interest in Jojo waned, and even though I have seen the other series, none of them left as much of an impression on me as the first three. As such, here's some quick thoughts on all of them. Diamond is unbreakable, or Diamond is no crash as some translations have put it. It's okay. With a suburban slice of life meets murder mystery theme about it, it's kinda cool, but most of the characters are rather bland and forgettable, as is the visual style as well, and this is where the final episodes started getting really confusing and feeling like they were just making stuff up on the fly. Which granted, Jojo has always done that, but this time it felt like it was more due to a time crunch rather than just a natural flow. Golden Wind. Not very good. The characters are better here, and despite a great idea of it being a mafia story, this one is one of the most disjointed and messy stories in the franchise, and has one of the worst villains who, while again a good idea, is just completely stupid in his execution and not entertaining at all. This is also the first JoJo series to implement an idea where when a character is going to die in an episode, they have the first 5 minutes be a big dedication to them, which is really annoying since it makes it so that you know they're about to die. Stone Ocean. Better. The characters, visuals and story at first are really entertaining and do remind me a bit of the first two series, but as it goes on it gets lost in the same issues that plagued the last two series, though the idea of a prison drama was a genius idea, and it's also got one of the best theme songs in the whole franchise and one of the best JoJo's, which I'm happy about considering her dad was a total tosspot. And that's it. As of yet, the 7th book, Steel Ball Run, has yet to be adapted, but I'm actually looking forward to that one because it's a reboot and goes back to a story style similar to the first two books, so I'm excited for that. I'm also hoping that they make a one-off OVA based off the story of Eyes of Heaven, because that story, in many ways, takes the best parts from all the books and cuts out all the fluff and has a lot of fun with it. It has a crap ending, granted, but still, there's a lot of potential there. But while JoJo's individual series are hit and miss to me past battle tendency, I do still love this franchise, and I'm always excited to see what comes next from it. But next time, we're going to take a look at an anime that had a much shorter run.